Let's just start recording. Beautiful. Thank you for whoever reminded me to record. So Jonathan, so good. Awesome. Who else? Anyone else want to share a success over the last week or so? Beth.
Yeah, so I'm going to brag on you a little bit, Mindy, because I have had...
Let me put a spotlight on you if you're going to do that. Hold on. Let me get to speaker view. Go, Beth.
Yeah, I did interview prep with Mindy twice in the last 2-3 weeks, whatever it's been. And I think she's fantastic. I've been interviewing forever. I'm not young. I've had lots of jobs, and I just have not had much luck. And I mean, Mindy definitely helped me a ton. So I just wanted to point that out. If anybody has any questions about interviewing, Mindy was fantastic, and I absolutely recommend.
Sweet.
Just prepping. It gives you confidence, and I mean, she pointed out everything I say wrong, and it was great.
but in a nice way, right, Beth?
Yes, absolutely. Always nice.
Awesome. Excellent. All right, let me go back to gallery. Anyone else want to share? Oh, Lisa put a heart. Kelly, yes.
Sorry about that. Well, yes, thanks to Mindy over the last year and a half, listen to me crying and whining that I just wanted to work from anywhere in the world with a laptop, a cell phone, and sell medical devices. And after beating my head against the wall, and I'm a hell of a lot older than Beth, hi Beth, I decided to take my future into my own hands. And with the help of Mindy and Christine Grogan, who's one of the founders of the Accelerators, I just got out there, met people at a conference, and now I'm happy to say that I've been doing some consulting work, but recently I've been as a 1099 selling medical device products within the wound care space. It's a steep learning curve for me. However, within the next 3 to 4 months, I'll be looking to build a team because my territories are the states of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And I'm happy, I'm happy. I don't have a lot of the stress I used to have. The finances will come, and I just want to tell everyone, stick with Mindy. She knows what she's talking about. So thanks, Mindy.
Thanks, Kelly, and congrats on that. Did I see LaShawn? Did I see you put your hand up?
Yes, you did.
Let me hear. What do we got?
I got a couple of things in my pipeline. The first is I applied for a position actually I held in the past with a financial firm. So I just received an email yesterday for me to have an interview this Friday. The second success story is, oddly enough, going through using some of the tips in LinkedIn. I found someone that actually used to work at a financial firm I did, and I connected with her. I applied for a position. She sent me an invite to interview for the position. So that's 2.
Wow. Awesome.
And the third one was when people, I'm old school. So when somebody crosses my mind, I call them to see how they were doing. He was like, I know somebody who's looking for a position. They're actually leaving the end of May. Give me your resume. He introduced us. He says, I already placed your resume in front of the VP, the hiring VP. He should be contacting you. So those are the 3 items I have in my pipeline.
Wow. Amazing. That's amazing. You're doing great, LaShawn. Wow. Really, really good. Excellent. Did I get everyone who wanted to talk? Yes. Arabella. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry about that.
No, please. Welcome.
I've had 2 interviews. One was a second level interview that I'm waiting to hear back from, and then I've just received a 3rd request for a 3rd interview. So I'm feeling like I succeeded at that step. I just don't know how to play the waiting game. That's the thing. How do I find out? I mean, is there a way to find out where I stand now in the process? That's my issue.
Okay, and that's a great question. We might pose that to Miss Barbara when we get open the floor for questions. Okay, Arabella?
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so without further ado, I would love to introduce Barbara Cohen Farber. We know each other for over 20 years, right, Barbara?
Right.
Let me see if I could change the view so we can see each other. Hold on. Oh, Cindy just sent out a success. A VP, wow. VP has asked her to send her resume and she did. Awesome.
So how long should I wait before following up? I think it's been a few days. And I don't know if that was his email or, I mean, from what it looked like he's the hiring manager, but it didn't look like that would be his email address because they weren't his initials. So I don't know, but I couldn't find who would have that email address by looking at LinkedIn. It wasn't obvious. It was only 2 letters at the company's name.com. So follow up with him, I guess. It's on LinkedIn. I don't know.
So I'm going to put Barbara on the spot. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to see if there's a way to do a view of 2 people. Hold on 1 second. I know how to do speaker view. I'm looking to see how I can split the screen somehow.
Well, right now I could see almost everybody on, which I like.
Right, so that's the gallery view. You like the gallery view, Barbara? You want me to leave it like that?
Yeah, because I think when someone is speaking, oh, you mean because they're not going to be speaking when you're questioning me?
Correct, because so you're very tiny right now.
Well, then I could look at them and see if they're making faces, right?
Okay, let's see how it goes. So Cindy, so we're going to let Cindy's question go first before I start asking my question, start the interview. I'm going to introduce Barbara Cohen Farber. She is awesome recruiter. All the bad news that you hear about recruiters, the ghosting, she doesn't do any of that stuff. She is committed to her candidates because truthfully, staffing companies don't make any money if they don't place candidates. So it's not in their best interest to ever ghost you unless there's some reason. And maybe we'll get into that a little bit in terms of the ghosting. But Cindy's question was, she heard back, they asked for a resume. How long should she wait before she follows up is the question. Is that correct? Is that what you asked, Cindy?
Correct.
Okay.
So, hi, Cindy. So you sent your resume, but you think you sent it to someone different? Is that what I understood?
Well, this person who's the VP at the company and he has, I'm hiring frame, I guess on his LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure. So I sent her a message saying, I'm looking in this area and I also saw the ad on Indeed. So this is I applied via Indeed last week, but then what was it? Was it Monday? I think he responded 2 weeks later and said, oh, send your resume to this email address. And it didn't look like it was his because it wasn't his initials. So
Gotcha.
I don't know. So do I follow up with him or?
I would follow up with him because you really don't have a choice to follow up with anyone else. I mean,
right.
I sent the other email
address and there wasn't his initials. So, but it looked like he's the hiring manager, but I don't know. I don't work there, obviously. So,
well, I would send the email initially to the person that you sent the resume to, and I would see.
He told me,
but I would CC him. I would.
Oh, okay.
I would send it to both of them and say, I just wanted to follow up. I sent my resume as requested on such and such a day, hoping to hear back from you soon. Simple.
Yeah, looking for my pen. Where'd it go? I'll just follow up with him and send an email again to the person I sent my resume to, or just
I feel like you should
to
reply to the email that you already sent, because sometimes they look at things in a thread, and if it has the same subject line,
okay,
they can easily find your email, maybe copy the other person, like what she said.
Right.
Yeah, I would copy the other person just because maybe he was handing it off to HR. And HR was supposed to be looking at that resume and doing something, and maybe they haven't. You don't want to get them in trouble, so you don't want to sound accusatory at all, but I would include both names.
Oh, so then what do you say? That you're just following up?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You know, maybe even make mention to the to the person who you connected with on LinkedIn. You know,
Right, it
as
could be
per
HR.
so-and-so's suggestion, you know, I had forwarded my resume on such and such a day. I just wanted to follow up, you know, looking forward to hearing from you. So this
Oh,
way,
okay.
they're both accountable.
It's strange, like, I guess not everybody is on LinkedIn because I searched for those initials on LinkedIn with the company, nothing came up. So,
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you,
Yeah,
Cindy,
thank you.
for a great
Thank you.
question and great answer. Okay, so Barbara, I'm going to start some of the interview and we will keep moving forward. All right, the first question, oh, by the way, I want to thank everyone who submitted questions. We had so many great questions and I will do as many as I possibly can, but I thank you in advance for all the questions that you sent me. So this is great. One of the first questions that came in is, what are some things that turn you off when you see a resume, Barbara?
What turns me off? A picture on the resume. I don't like it. I don't think it belongs there. And one of the rules of recruiting is that you cannot discriminate in any way. So why are you putting yourself out there? It just tells everything about you. And I think it's inappropriate. Typos are huge. Spelling and grammar mistakes are huge.
I see Yvonne smile. This is Yvonne's special area. Yvonne Kutcher is the lady with the eagle eyes. So I see her smiling. Yes.
You know, I've been known, I've been called the hawk, you know, because I will catch a mistake on a resume immediately. One of the things that I think I catch on every single resume I see is their tenses are not consistent. A lot of people don't think about that, and that drives me absolutely crazy. If you're not working there anymore, it's past tense. If you're still working there, it's present tense. But there are 3 different versions of present tense. So be very careful, you know, third party, you can say, you know, handle administrative duties, you can say handles, or you can say handling. You know, be very careful and make sure that your tenses are all consistent, because, you know, I place a lot of administrative and HR people, and, you know, administrative especially, you know, your executive is handing off a document expecting you, you know, to be the eyes for that document. And so that makes a big difference. I'm not a fan of fancy fonts. I'm not a fan of different colors. Formatting is important. You know, don't mush everything onto one page because somebody told you resumes shouldn't go to the second page. I don't agree with that. I mean, if you're a recent college grad or you've been working, you know, just a year or two, one page is going to do it. Don't go past that so that you have your, you know, dog walking job from 5th grade, you know, going on to that second page. But if you've been working a decent amount of time, there is no reason your resume cannot go on to that second page. I think it's more important that it's easier for someone to read it than to say, oh, look, he or she got it on one page. I always tell my candidates, you know, make sure that whoever's going to read it is going to find it very easy to say, who is she or he? Where did they work? From when to when? What did they do? And then if they've gotten to that point, they're asking themselves, what did he or she do at their company that I can use here at this company? And if you're making it difficult for that employer to really figure all that out in 2 seconds, then you failed on your resume. You know, just keep it simple. You want to go into bullets. You want to go into, you know, not long drawn out, you know, paragraphs. Oh, there's one thing I didn't remember that just popped into my head. Don't make it in first party, like You don't want to say, I did this, I did that, I did this, make it more bullets with like action verbs as the first part of your bullet.
Thanks, Barbara.
You're
Great
welcome.
answer. I think I saw follow up. Oh, someone, I think it was Cindy. Stop at 2 pages, correct, Barbara? We don't go over 2.
For the most part, I would say. Does that mean I win something? I would say for the most part, I wouldn't go over 2. I have seen it go to 3, and depending on the background, I'm not opposed.
Wow.
But trying to keep it at 2, is sufficient. Don't go to 3 and then have the 3rd page be, a tiny little thing on the top. Make sure you widen your margins, pull things out a little bit, make your font a little bit smaller, but I would try to keep it to 2.
Would it surprise you to know that I have gotten resumes that are 9 pages long?
Nothing surprises me, ever.
Those are very, 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 very challenging. So, all right, cool.
I would usually just pick up the phone and say, so what do you do? Because I'm not reading 9 pages.
Oh yeah, no recruiter's reading 9 pages for sure. Okay, this question comes up all the time. How do you feel about that green open to work banner around people's heads? How do you feel about that, Ms. Recruiter?
Honestly, I don't pay any attention to it. If I see your resume on LinkedIn or your profile on LinkedIn and I'm searching, I'm going to call you whether, I'm going to contact you whether it says open for hire or not. So I don't think it matters much.
Okay, so you're not specifically searching for people with the banner.
I've never done that, no.
Good. Okay, good.
Because some of the best candidates are passive candidates. So, I'm going to reach out regardless.
Right. So just so everyone knows, a passive candidate is someone who's not actively looking. They're actually working, and and Barbara wants to grab them because they're probably a good candidate with whatever the skills are. That's a passive candidate. And most of
And also the open for hire banner, if people are searching that way, that candidate is so confused. They're getting contacted by, recruiters, by companies, and they are often very overwhelmed. And I just don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Great. Okay. So when you have equally qualified candidates, both resumes, 2 candidates look great on paper, they have the skills that you're looking for the client that you're posting for, how do you decide? Aside from the client saying, hey, I like Mary better than Susie, how do you decide who you want to present to the client?
Well, the important thing to remember is that recruiters will and really should present multiple candidates. If I feel that 2 or 3 or even 4 candidates are equally qualified, I'm going to submit them all. And when it comes down to me having an influence on the client, then I think I hone in on attitude. I think attitude plays a huge part. How serious you are about making a move or getting a job. Bless you. Communication skills are extremely important. But if I have 4 candidates that I think are all equally qualified, then it's going to be a matter of a personality fit with the employer. So I'm going to submit them all. But if my client, once I have relationships with my client for many years, the client will say, well, who's your favorite? What do you think? And I have an opportunity to kind of jump in and give my 2 cents. And honestly, the ones that respond to me very quickly, I don't like to be ghosted either. So if I spoke to someone about a job and told them that I'm submitting their resume and my client is interested in meeting them, and then I can't get a hold of you, you are definitely going to the bottom of my list. because why would I push to get you in when you're not even returning my phone calls? So, you know, a lot of people talk about recruiters, you know, ghosting people, but it really, I hate to say it, but it really does go both ways. You know, I've had people say, oh, set it up for tomorrow. That would be perfect. And then I spend 3 days trying to reach them. Oh, I was busy. You know, so your attitude and your desire to get a job and your interest in this particular job is what's going to make me push a little further for you.
That's
Hey,
a
Barbara,
great-
this is Chris Zerwick. Sorry to interrupt, but I've got a follow-up question to that. So if you're representing a client, is it good for the person who you're trying to present to them to maybe put together actually write out talking points for you, maybe put together a PowerPoint or things like that to help you sell the individual to your client?
I don't usually do that, and it could just be because of the volume that I work at. But I make sure to meet every candidate. I spent, you know, 34 years meeting every single person in person. Now I do it mostly on Teams. I don't really meet them, you know, in person, but I meet them before I send them. So I have a pretty good handle on what I need to do to present them. Sometimes I will ask, you know, depending on the job, if the job is a little bit more intense, I might ask them, you know, why they feel they'd be a good fit and what they could bring to the table. And then I incorporate it, you know, into what I am using to present.
Okay, thank you. So if you and I had a Teams call and that, it would not be to my benefit to put together maybe 10 bullets as to, based on our discretion, why I'm a good fit, just to help you in the process.
If you did it very quickly, it wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
But I move pretty quickly. So the last thing I want to do is add a step before I present who I think is a good candidate to the client.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Barbara, Arabella has a question that's actually next on my list. So I'm going to ask her question because it's almost exactly what I was going to ask you. How can you follow up on an interview without sounding pushy? I think the word I had was feeling like a stalker, especially when you're very interested in the position after the interview. How do you follow up without sounding pushy or stalkerish?
Well, I mean, are we talking about the actual employer or the recruiter?
Well, in your case, it would be the recruiter, right?
In this case, no, in my case, it's the actual employer.
Okay. So I assume the principles are similar.
Similar, but not 100%. You know, in regards to an employer, if you're going directly through that employer, it's okay, you know, to follow up, and I'll get back to how often or whatever. But if you're going through a recruiter, the employers don't want the contact from the candidates directly. I mean, a thank you note, yes, you know, maybe an additional follow-up, but I would always run it by your recruiter first. I actually even have every one of my candidates, regardless of level, send me their emails first, because I, like Yvonne, am a hawk, and I will find mistakes. And there is nothing worse than getting knocked out of the running because there's a mistake on your thank you note. But in regards to timing, I think if you went directly through the employer and it was a first interview, I would absolutely send a thank you note. If you haven't heard back, you know, in a couple of days, maybe give it to, you know, a little less than a week, I would follow up again, expressing your interest. You know, you're not a pest unless you sound like a pest. So be conscious of how you are verbalizing, you know, or writing what it is you're trying to say. You know, in regards to recruiters, you know, what's important that candidates understand is, as a recruiter, I'm working with companies that are looking to hire, and I'm working with candidates that are looking for jobs. And I'm basically a corporate matchmaker. Okay. And if my candidates are calling me every single day asking me what happened with that resume that I sent out, I don't have any time to call companies to get new openings. So, it's important that you let the recruiter, if you feel confident with that recruiter, that if they say to you, I sent this resume, I'll get back to you as soon as I hear, don't jump on it that afternoon and say, did you hear anything? I like the enthusiasm, and I often do send that information over to my client saying, she's really interested, really feels like this could be a good fit for her, etc. But by calling, 20 times a day, trying to check on what's happening doesn't give us the opportunity to follow up with that client for you, and also call new clients and try and get new business so that we have more opportunities to offer. I hope that answered the question.
I think so. I have a follow-up from, and this should be pretty simple answer, but it's a kind of a follow-up, so I'm going to do that at the same time. This is from Lisa. When a search firm posts a job opening, is it best to reach out to the recruiter or go directly to the company they're recruiting for? What's the best tactic?
Well, most recruiters, and I will speak for myself, I never post the name of that company in that ad. If an employer decides that they want to use a recruiter, they're doing it for many, many reasons. Sometimes it's a confidential opening. Sometimes they do not want to be bombarded with the candidate flow that comes from posting their own opening. They go to a recruiter, they hire us so that we can filter through the 3,000 people that are looking and narrow it down to the top 3 that we feel are good candidates. So I would say never go to that company, because you're not only going to upset the recruiter, you're going to upset the employer because they didn't put the post up and they're not happy about you, sort of trying to bypass their recruiter.
Wow. Okay, cool. Good. Okay, here's a question from Brian. He wants to know, how can you show great skills and also not broadcast your age? Or is that an irrational fear, he's asking? Is that, I don't know, Brian, is that an irrational fear? I don't think it's irrational. I think age discrimination is alive and well in the United States, for sure. So I don't think it's an irrational fear, but there's certainly ways to not showcase your age, but still showcase your experience. So Barbara, do you want to speak to that?
I don't think age should play a part, but like Mindy said, it's going to. And, trying to hide it isn't going to help, because they're going to meet us and they're going to see our age. You're going to fill out an application. They're going, it's there. I think that when you're making up a resume, it really depends. If you've been working at the same company for 30 years, I've had candidates say to me, well, I'm just going to change that date so it looks like I've only worked there 15. I'm like, no. You can't do that. Companies are doing background checks. They will hold it against you if your dates are incorrect, whether it's you went over or under. It doesn't really matter. If you've been at multiple companies and you want to, chop off 20 years ago because you've had recent jobs, that's okay. But don't chop it in the middle of a job.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I just left my company after 22 years, my first job out of college. And they had set us up with an outplacement company, and they told me to take off the first 10 years. And I argued with them that I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I was there for so long, and it's part of, who I am.
Well,
so,
it's also important to show if you started fresh out of college. I mean, that's one of my favorite resumes, because you see education. I go backwards when I look at a resume. So I look at the educational background, and then I'm looking at where you went from there. And the one thing that I've seen that I don't really like is, let's say you left that job after 22 years as the VP of marketing. And you have that for 22 years. My first question is, you didn't get that job out of
Right.
college as a VP of marketing. You know, I like to see that you started as the receptionist, you moved into a marketing assistant, then you moved into a marketing manager, then you moved into a VP of marketing. It shows progression. It shows that you have been promoted. And it also explains your entire background.
So what I did, I have a 2-page resume, but I only break out, I think, my last 10 years of roles, and then I have like other relevant, and I just bulleted, because I was a software developer, like I don't do that anymore, but like it
Right.
shows the progression of like
Right.
where I went, and I just list what those roles are, and I group that as like my first 10 years.
That's exactly how I would recommend doing it. I would never just chop off 10 years because your background check is not going to check out.
Right.
And I've had people start jobs and get fired for
Wow.
lying on their resume. You know, the
Right.
first or second or third day, when sometimes, you know, nowadays they don't even let you start till the background is done. But
Right.
not everybody, not every company. Sometimes they're so anxious for you to start that, you know, they let you start and say, you know, but just know that we're waiting on, you know, the background check. And I had someone completely lie and say that they had a 4-year degree.
Wow.
And the company checked, and they only, I mean, the candidate said to me, oh, it was so long ago and I only needed like 2 more classes, and everyone I've spoken to over the years, you know, told me, oh, just leave it as a bachelor's. Meanwhile, here's the worst part. The bachelor's degree was not even required by the job for the job at the company. So, you know, and this person lost, you know, they rescinded the offer and said, I'm sorry, you know, we can't hire you. You lied. So, you know, just keep in mind, background checks are not going anywhere, more now than ever. So I think you did it the right way.
So can you speak to the flip side of that for a moment? So I have not been at the same job for 20 years. So it's multiple jobs, different from going from mental health jobs as a therapist to speaking and training, and then back to mental health. And then just to add to what you were commenting on, the background check, I was at a contract job as a psychologist at a state prison in Washington. And I get this thing saying, you lied about your education. You need to call me right now. Da, 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 da. It was the state auditor for malpractice insurance through the contracting company. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, where did you get your PhD? California School of Professional Psychology doesn't even show up. And I said, well, first of all, I'm a therapist at a prison, not a criminal. So I really need you to take a breath, or I need to take a breath before I say the wrong thing. I said, I don't know what internet search engine you're using, but in Google, if you type California School of Professional Psychology, the first thing that comes up is, we are now Alliant University. The second thing that comes up is, it's an accredited program since 1979. I said, I went there in 84. So, you know, anyway, I don't want to monopolize time, but so I'm just wondering any tips you have on that kind of thing.
If that comes up often, you can put the name of the school and then in parentheses say, you know, now known as such and such, you know, if it comes up, but it shouldn't come up, but it happens.
I had a quick question.
Bill has another question.
Along the lines of what you're speaking. I was working with a staffing company that, because I had a lot of contracted jobs, but I'm seeking a direct type of role, they wanted to condense the contracts together, but in doing so, they excluded a couple of direct jobs that I had in that time frame. So, but that's how they wanted to do it, to sell my resume to potential clients. I mean, I wasn't too happy about it, but how does that work? Or is
I have grouped contract jobs together in some instances, but I wouldn't if there were direct hire jobs in between.
Mm.
You know, unless you can group the contract, then put, you know, any lengthy direct hire and then group the contract. So split them up depending on the length of time of the direct hire jobs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, a question about pivoting, Barbara. And I believe this one came from April, I believe. So what do you look for if a candidate is trying to pivot into a new industry or a new career? What do you look for in the resume to make you know that someone's got transferable skills?
Well, my first answer was going to be transferable skills. I think that a desire to make a move is really important. But it's also important to understand, and I have this come up quite often. I speak to a lot of candidates who tell me, you know, I've been a teacher and I don't like where teaching is going and I would like to make a move. It's important to understand that when you're working with a staffing firm, we are basically being hired as a source. We're basically a vendor, for lack of a better word, to that client company. And they are telling us, we need to fill this position and these are all the requirements that we need. And sometimes they're not flexible at all. And I may feel that your background as a teacher would be perfect for a training position, you know, in an HR department or something like that. But if I can't convince that client that you have the transferable skills and that I've met you and I really feel you could be a good fit, then my hands are tied. And so it's important not to argue too much, you know, with that recruiter who's telling you it's not going to fly at this particular company. They're not, you know, they want to see corporate experience, having done X, Y, and Z. And I can't, you know, they pay a fee to the staffing firm for us to find the ideal candidate. So in many cases, a change of career is not the way that they want to go. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get a job. It doesn't mean that you can't pivot from one field to another. But sometimes it does mean that that recruiter may not be able to help you. And I'm always honest with my candidates. If I don't feel that my client at that given time, you might see a posting that I put up on LinkedIn and say, but I can do this, but I can do this. You know, sometimes I'm working on an executive assistant to the chief executive officer. And that's exactly what they want. Someone who has done that exact job. And I get a lot of mid-management people who say, well, I have the computer skills, I've had interactions with CEOs, I've done this, I've done that. But no, that's below me. I could certainly do that job. No, you've never done it. It doesn't work that way. You know, and my client is not going to see someone who was in mid-management who had conversations with their CEO about their latest marketing plan. You know, it's not what they're looking for. So pivoting is doable, but it's sometimes a challenge through a staffing firm that's being hired to fill a particular position. Does that answer your question, Mind?
Yeah, April, does that answer your question? I know it's a challenge for sure.
It answers it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what do you think is more important, the resume or the LinkedIn profile?
I would say they're both important and they're both important equally. When candidates come to a recruiter, sometimes a new resume just comes into my inbox in Outlook. And so I'm not even looking at that LinkedIn profile yet. I'm looking at that resume and I'm deciding, is this person a possible fit for this job? I work a little bit differently than a lot of recruiters, maybe because it's I'm old school, and I meet with every candidate that is within the realm of the type of positions that I place, even if I don't have an opening right now, because that's how I build my pipeline. And that's how I have people for future openings. So if a resume comes in and it's someone that I think that I want to talk to, I'm going to pick up the phone and call that person, or shoot an email and try and set up a time to talk. I might look at your LinkedIn profile while I'm dialing, and I might, want to see how you handle LinkedIn. Or I might have done a search, or I might have gotten a message from you on LinkedIn, and we're communicating on LinkedIn, and I'm looking at the LinkedIn profile and I don't have your resume yet. So it could come from either way, but at some point before I send you your resume anyplace, I am going to see both. One thing about LinkedIn, make sure it's up to date, and make sure you have a photo, and make sure that it's a professional photo. And as long as I am bringing up photos, a lot of employers are checking Facebook. So be very careful about your privacy settings. Be careful about your profile picture, because that's going to be visible regardless of your profile settings. And I have seen people not get interviews because of what they had on Facebook. So just do it like I do it. I have my millennial son check my settings every now and then to make sure that things are, somewhat private. My son actually, and this is really more, I think, for students that, had just gotten out of college or whatever, but, a lot of their pictures are parties and this and that. But my son actually changed his name, not changed his name, but used his first name and his middle name for a while on Facebook while he was job hunting, and, had just graduated school, etc. So they can't find you as easily.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting segue, Barbara, because next month we're hosting Jason Hopper, who's a career coach, and he's going to speak about Facebook and Instagram and all those other ways that job seekers can find jobs. So we focus a ton on LinkedIn, and it's certainly my favorite place to go. But there's a whole other world out there in social media. So I'm glad you're bringing that up, and we'll grill Jason a little bit next month if you join us to learn about these other areas of social media where, apparently there are other ways to network aside from LinkedIn.
I'm active on Facebook, and I use Facebook often in looking for candidates. And, sometimes it's really just referrals, that I'm after. I mean, if I know, have 1,700, whatever connections on Facebook, and I put up there that I'm, looking for an HR manager for a public company in Garden City, et cetera, who do you know? And I get a lot of referrals that way, and again, sometimes it's someone who's looking. Sometimes it's a passive candidate, oh, that's exactly what my sister does. Maybe she doesn't want to work in the city anymore, and Garden City would be great. So again, that's just a suburb of Long Island, of New York City, that for those of you that don't know the area, sorry about that.
Yeah. We are a nationwide group here, so they could be
Yes, no,
anywhere.
that's why I clarified it, but.
So we are running short on time, but there was a question of what type of candidates you place, Barbara, because I would like to get you some more great candidates. So if you can tell the team, this group, what kind of candidates you're looking for, that would be really helpful. They're asking.
Absolutely. My specialty is administrative business support, which can be anything from the receptionist to the office manager. So executive assistant, my sweet spot is the executive assistant to a senior level executive, the admin who works for a team or a VP. I also do customer service management, sales support, marketing support. And in addition to that business operations support, I do human resources. So human resources can be that recent college grad who just graduated and is looking for that HR assistant job, up through the HR director, the HR manager, the HR generalist, could be a benefits specialist, an HRIS specialist, everything in between. Lloyd Staffing is a large firm with many different niche specialties. So if I speak to someone who is not within my area of specialty, I would just pass them along to someone else in my company.
Excellent. So one reason that you might want to connect with Barbara or follow her on LinkedIn is she does a fantastic Tuesday chuckle, which always makes me laugh. So, follow her and you'll get to see every Tuesday she comes up with a great one. Yesterday's was beautiful, Barbara. I was rolling. And sometimes you just need a good laugh at the end of the day, and they're all job seeker related. So it's quite wonderful.
It's funny because that started, it was during the pandemic and we were home and, everything was shut down, and I saw something funny and it happened to have been a Tuesday. And so instead of just putting it up on LinkedIn the way I used to do it in the past, I said, every Tuesday I'm going to do this. And I just named it Tuesday Chuckle, and it took off. And then I decided to do I do something on Thursday as well. And everyone always calls it, Thursday tips. It's always tips, the word. And I changed it and I call it 2 Cent Thursdays. So, and that's usually just, a tip for interviewing, a tip for, for how to find a job or write a resume or something like that.
Well, we thank you for all you do, Barbara. Thank you so much.
Welcome. You're very welcome.
You're amazing. Thank you for sharing all of your information with us. I would remind everyone, if there's a lot of information in the chat, if you want to save the chat, go to those 3 little dots all the way to the right of the chat, and you'll see right on top it says save chat, and it should pop into your somewhere in your inbox somehow. I'm not sure where it's saved, but just if you don't save it, it'll be gone. So I appreciate you all. Keep a positive outlook. We are here for you. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Find me on LinkedIn. A couple of people connecting with me right now. If you want to join the Accelerator group, where you're going to find some amazing jobs and also some great support, I need to invite you. So, and I can't invite you if we're not with first level connections. So connect with me and just let me know that you want to join the Accelerator group, and we're happy to have you.
And I'd love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find with my 3 names.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I hope you all have an awesome day, and we'll see you on June 1st for our next session.
Nice meeting you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye. It's us again. I'm trying to figure out how to save the chat.
In the chat, go all the way to the right, and there's 3 tiny little buttons, and it says more if you hover over it. So right next to I'm hovering on April's name.
No, I don't see it.
You see the smiley face?
I moved it to another screen. Maybe that's why. Well, if you save it, send it to me. How's that?
If I can, I will try to. I did save it. I'm not sure how it shows up, but I will try. But if do you see the little smiley face next to, go to a new name?
Right, now that I'm
April.
Hold on, let me just get this chat back where it belongs, because I had it really large on another screen. And that might be why. Do I have to be at the beginning of it? No, right?
No, at the very end.
Now I see it. 3 dots. Okay.
3 dots. Click on the 3 dots.
Chat.
And
Save
all the way at the
chat.
top, it says save chat.
Okay, but we don't know where it is.
It's going to show up somewhere.
Okay.
How did you like today's call? How was that for you?
It was good. How'd I do?
Fantastic. It was great.
Good.
It was
Good, good,
great. I
good.
think everyone really got a lot out of it. And you'll see, if you scroll down the chat, you'll see a lot of people were thanking us and so great and all that good stuff.
All right, I'm gonna check it out. All right, thanks for the invite.
I appreciate it, Barbara. It
No
was
problem
fun.
at all. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.